What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness. I am here with LZ, and we also have a special guest, Scott Smith, here, aka Sports Illustrated King. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me and appreciate the invite.
Excellent. Scott, LZ and I are sort of, I don't know, flabbergasted at what you do. It's just like, it's amazing. But I was wondering if you could just tell the audience a little bit about what you do and what makes you the Sports Illustrated King.
Well, it's a long story. I'll give you a short version, but I've been collecting autographs on Sports Illustrated magazines for 41 years, since about 1982. My grandmother had given me a subscription in 1973, and like any pack rat, like you would save cards or, bottle caps or marbles. I just stashed all my magazines in my closet and had 10 years worth of them just piling up, 600 magazines. And one day I decided to go to the Edmonton Oilers hotel, and when they were in town to play the Devils, and hooked up with the team and Wayne Gretzky and got one signed, and it's all been uphill and kind of downhill since then. Just got about 20, I've probably had over 20,000 signed back to 1954, and I'm still continuing to, go out and run around and get autographs, not daily anymore, but, weekly or monthly, and participate in shows and just chase down people wherever I can in New York and New Jersey.
That's wild.
It's
A lot of fun.
20,000. 20,000. Wow.
Now, is that 20,000 that you have kept personally, or have you kind of like, unloaded some over the years and you're left with like 20,000 at your PC?
I have the personal collection from 1954 until today. Let's just call it, 3,600 different issues from 54 until today, of which I have about 3,450 signed, about 95% of the history of the magazine signed. On those 3,600 covers, there might be about 5,500 autographs. There are many covers with multiple cover subjects, maybe 20 of the Detroit Red Wings when they won the Stanley Cup, or 20 USA softball players when they were on a cover, or like the soccer players, the girls soccer, there may be 20 or 22 players on that cover. So there's about 5,500 autographs on about 3,400 covers that I have. Still about 100 or so that I may never get. Some guys that are dead, and still 15 or 16 of 51 Jordans that I don't have. I'm behind about 20 or 25 covers on LeBron, behind about 20 on Tiger, just guys that just don't sign.
Right.
But then I do have probably another 14 or 15,000 extras in stock on a website, my Amazon store. I've probably sold 7,000 or 8,000 issues over 30 years or so. So right now it's probably somewhere around 20,000 that I have, in my office and my stock here.
That's just that's amazing, Scott. I'm trying to kind of soak this all in with the amount of work and passion that goes behind this. So you talked about kind of the Edmonton being your first signature when you went and got some of those guys. But I am curious, that was the beginning. When did you say to yourself, like, oh wow, this is a bit more than just a simple hobby. This is like a real passion that I'm going to dive into. Like, how long did it take you? Like, do you remember an inflection point where that might have happened for you?
It was probably late 80s where I started to understand, had I been a little smarter back in 82, 83, 84, had I, there was no real computers or eBay, or I didn't really have the ability to purchase all the magazines back into the 50s, everything before I was born. There's like a bullfighter or a race car driver, or, people that I would never have known who they are. I never picked up those magazines until maybe the early 90s. And then once the computers started and, having the ability to just do homework, you were able to Google or call relatives or just find neighbors and find houses and do a lot of more detective work. But um, I think it was probably the late 80s where, I was going like, I was high school, college, first year out of college, second year out of college, where I was spending all my free time. Again, not married, no children, no responsibilities, living at home. Just going out every day. In New York City, you could go to a TV show, crash a banquet, go to a hotel where there's a baseball, football, hockey, basketball, 2 or 3 teams from every sport in New Jersey and New York. So it's just a constant every day, sometimes twice a day type of thing where, as a 20 or 25-year-old, you could run around and do whatever the heck you want. I started loading up and spending so much money, running in and out of New York City or, gas tolls and so forth. It was, costing a lot of money to try and build the collection. So I guess in like the early 90s, I started, buying more and additional issues, buying collections from people all over the country and loading up on unsigned magazines to get extras signed so I could sell them, make money in order to, pay for everything that I was buying for my own collection, whether it was spending money at shows or, flying down to Florida, just running in and out of New York City 5 out of 7 days a week was costly. Parking cars and food and bridge tolls, gas, it all adds up. But it was probably the early 90s when I realized I was spending so much money trying to build my collection that I realized I had to get into trying getting as many as I can or getting a little more extras in order to, fuel the fire, if you will.
Scott, so in the early 90s, I am curious because we didn't ask this yet. Like, is this like a full-time job? Like, did you decide in the 90s, like, you know what, I can actually make this like a career? This is like I can make enough money to like support myself and eventually a family? Like, I'm just
No,
curious. Is it okay?
yeah,
So,
no, it was a
all right.
hobby. It was a hobby
Okay.
for a very long time. So out of college, worked odds and ends jobs.
Mm,
Ended out, working in advertising and graphic design. And, you make 30, 40 grand a year and it's just peanuts when you get out of college. But
hmm
I actually opened up a sports bar when I was 25 years old. And it was my cousin's husband, who was also a bartender. So we had a successful 4-year run near college here in New Jersey and had a lot of fun. Didn't make a lot of money, but enough so that I always worked a regular job. After that, got serious with life around 29 years old, went down to Wall Street for about 10 years, made a nice living down there. I left about 6 months before the towers got hit, took a year off, and then I restructured corporate debt for another 10 years here in New Jersey. So I was a finance for about 20 years. All the time in my free time, I'd run around, get
mm.
autographs as I saw fit. But then, you get married, you have children, and you slow down a little bit, maybe go out on weekends or nights or whenever kids are sleeping and no homework is needed to be done. Uh, but it was always I don't want to call it a side hustle because it was just still my collection. So I was really
hmm
building my collection. The extras were just to help offset all of my expenses. But it was also just still building and building and compiling inventory just to, I always figured maybe when I was 65 or 70, just peddle the stuff on eBay or Amazon and just have fun with whatever extras I have. And that'd be my retirement. But it's now, since leaving, real life work, suit and tie, it's become more of a full-time job, even though I don't really consider it work. I think I'm somewhat semi-retired at 58, and this stuff, I could have never made a living doing this.
hmm
So I think you've got to have a quote unquote real job and then do this on the side. And now that I'm a little older, it's, I've got a lot of inventory that I can move and still, working with agents, working with athletes directly, still staying involved in the hobby. I can still, you know, do fairly well without having to worry about, mortgages and bills and stuff like that. you got to have a real job. I think there aren't too
Yeah.
many that can really make a good living. You know, I don't know where you guys are, but living in New Jersey, you know, I think it's probably the highest paying or highest taxed state in the country. It's just it's awfully expensive to live here.
Yeah, we share your pain. We're in the Boston area, so if
Oh
we're
yeah,
not, we're very close, very close to you on
yeah.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
property
Uh,
taxes alone are closing in on 20 grand a year. It's just
mm,
it's kind of silly.
yeah, yeah. Um, Now, thank you for sharing that. That's
Sure.
well, first off, I think it's a real blessing that you're now at a stage in your life where you get to do your passion. And
Absolutely.
you know, I think that's what everybody hopes for and wishes for, is you do get to a point in your life where your passion can kind of become your career and can support you a bit. So
Yeah,
kudos to you.
it's
Yeah.
like I said, I don't consider it work. So
Yeah. That's a beautiful
it is
thing.
a passion. It'll always be that way, and
Mm,
it's really not work, even though there's a lot of work involved. But I don't consider it work, so it's a lot of fun.
yeah. That's great.
Hmm.
Um, You had mentioned, because I wanted to get into this with you. You'd mentioned like some detective work that you have
Yep.
to do. Can you walk through with us how you get prepared to find one of these celebrities, whether it's an athlete or a musician or a model? It really runs the gamut with you. And the reason why I ask is because me and Nick follow you on different social media platforms, and you know, it's always interesting, right? You're right there in the street when that celebrity comes out of whatever building they're at and you're ready to go. And I'm thinking in my head, like, it's got to be a lot of prep work. Like, how did Scott know that that person's going to get out of their limo right there? So can you walk through with us kind of how that looks, your detective work and whatnot?
Yeah, it's like I'll give you two recent ones. You know, one is that, you know, Instagram, Facebook, following these personalities, uh, seeing patterns. They give out most of the information in the first place. So it's just a matter of monitoring, um, let's say Heidi Klum and Megan Fox, two, you know, it's not hard to figure out, you know, you look at the Brooklyn Nets schedule, the New York Knicks schedule, you know what teams are in. With a little bit of work, you find the team hotel. They might have a 9 o'clock morning shoot. They might leave for the game at 4 o'clock, get to the hotel at 8, get to the hotel at 3, and they come out within an hour or two. That's not hard. For Heidi Klum, she has done a Halloween party here in New York City for 10 or 12 straight years. Once you find the venue, just a matter of putting in the time. In this case, you might get, you know, the 10-second success video. What you don't know is that I was there for 11 hours.
Yeah.
I got there at 6 o'clock in the afternoon and I didn't see her until 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
You don't know that, but you see the success video at the end.
Yeah, it
Unfortunately, I
all looks
couldn't get
so
her on.
easy.
Yeah,
So
it does
easy,
look easy,
Scott.
but that was a brutal chase, if you will, or, you know, it was a brutal. You couldn't get her on the way in. There was so much paparazzi. There was so much security. It was impossible. On the way out, 4:30 in the morning, there was no one left, and it was fairly easy. But Megan Fox, on the other hand, she announced on Instagram that she had a book party at a club in New York City. You click on the thing, you buy your tickets. I don't buy the tickets, but, you know, the doors opened at 7. It started at 8. It ended at 9. Get there at 7:30. She goes in. She took some pictures on the way in. At 9:15, she came out. She promised on the way in that she'd sign on the way out. So I was there for an hour and a half and got 5 things done. So, you know, they gave me the information about the book party. It was just a matter of getting there, putting in an hour and a half, 2 hours of time. And, you know, I've got crazy Sports Illustrated collectors that need to have everything like I do. And because none of them have the time or the energy or the skills to go out. One guy lives in Houston. One guy's an attorney in California. One guy lives in St. Louis. They're not going to go find Megan Fox. So something like that, if I sell it for 500 a piece, it's no big deal to them. They'll pay it in a second. That's on the high end of things because she's a Hollywood model and very hard to come by. And when she's with Machine Gun Kelly, she's impossible. But other autographs I might get 30, 40, 50, $100 for. It just depends on who it is and how much time is involved.
So let's bring up, my example, right? I reached out to you and asked you if you could help me get Charles Barkley. Like, you were offering a service, and I'm like, oh, Charles Barkley's a tough one. He doesn't do signings.
Right.
His cards are expensive on eBay. Yeah, I could fork over, but I didn't really want to have to fork over that much because I already had the raw card. So I reached out to you, and yeah, you went and chased it down for me. And I think your first attempt was maybe was it that Lake Tahoe event, the golf tournament? It was that kind of the first one. And then
he's done that for. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, could you just, go through kind of how you went about that one? Because even how you ended up finding him, I thought was interesting.
He's played golf out at this Lake Tahoe charity event for, the 14 years that I've been going out there. And most of those years, he gladly signs on the golf course, and he'll sign whatever you put in front of him. It's not easy to sneak in the memorabilia because you're not allowed to bring memorabilia in the course, but, to put cards in your pockets or 8x10s or magazine covers, stick them in an envelope, shove them down your back. You can get away with it until you get caught and kicked off the course, but you've got to be smarter than the security and the cops. But for the past few years, he has refused to sign on the golf course there. So he does TV shows from Atlanta down at TNT. He does Closer to Me. He does March Madness in New York City once a year. I know where he stays when he comes in. I know where he flies in and flies out. So it's a matter of either going to the TV studio or going to the hotel or going to a local bar that I know he goes to every single night. It's just, again, matter of time, putting in the time. And if you've got the time at midnight to 3 or 4 in the morning, eventually you're going to see the guy, whether it's after the show or after he gets done drinking. It's why it's very costly to get him. He'll only sign one. And for me to take 2, 3, 4 hours at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's a little bit more of an expensive. He's a Hall of Famer. He barely signs. When you see him, he never signs on a golf course, or at least this one golf course that I go to. He's a pretty friendly dude when you see him elsewhere, but it's a lot of time involved to get one autograph.
Yeah, it is.
So it's,
it is. And thank you. Thank you for helping me with that one.
Sure, sure.
Scott, this is so crazy to me. Like, what's eye-opening is that you're like, hey, they just like share this information. Like the celebrities don't realize what they're sharing on Instagram. It's like, hey, I'm going to this city. I'm going to this book club. I'm going to whatever. All you have to do is follow them if they're not private. And it's like, well, there they are. And I mean, that's just, that's crazy. I never thought of it.
I don't think they think of it that way. I don't think that they think that I'm using that information to go meet them. Most people aren't, but for autograph collectors, it's a great help.
Wild.
Yeah, so, you definitely have another job, like working for like the CIA and like the intelligence department, Scott. I know you do.
I don't believe this side semi-retired thing whatsoever.
Yeah, no, and again, that's why it's like it is like detective work. I've spent like 30 years trying to find like 2 children in China who were on a cover in 1988. And eventually it took me 30 years, but I finally found them and identified them. But I would have made a really good detective, or, if I ever went into hotel security, I would spot someone like me in a second, so I'd be able to, I'd be good, like, Secret Service or something like that. I'd be pretty good at that.
Oh, that's so funny. So Scott, one of the, I think I saw some video you posted a ways back. You had a story about Michael Jordan. So a lot of our listeners are basketball card collectors and vintage card collectors, and Jordan's obviously a big one. I heard, I don't know if this is correct, that you offered him like $10,000 and he said no. Can you tell me that story?
Yeah, it's a good one. Back in the early 90s, he had the Michael Jordan Celebrity Golf Classic down in the Bahamas, down near the Atlantis Hotel in the Bahamas. Not too many collectors, I assume, were savvy enough to have passports and travel down there, but I used to go every year for 3 or 4 years, and I would murder it down there with Jordan, Dr. J, Jeter, Pujols, Breeze, Roethlisberger, Sabathia. I mean, huge names. I would get 1,000 things signed in 4 days. I would just murder these guys, and there were no collectors, like real pro collectors down there. It was all like neighborhood Bahamian kids and sponsors, and no one really getting autographs. There were maybe a small handful. I remember one of my buddies from Georgia would go down, and maybe a couple others, and then some locals would have Jordan jerseys, or people vacationing would walk around the course and enjoy, have fun. But I would crack Jordan pretty good down there, and he's known me since 1982. The first time I ever got him was when his first cover came out with Sam Perkins, and so he's on 51 different covers. I have 35 of them signed. So I would see him in New York. I would see him in New Jersey. I would see him pretty much anytime he came through New York with the Bulls. So I don't want to say I've gotten to know him, but he's kind of gotten to know me from seeing me so many times. Always signed, his first few years. He was always pretty gracious. Even when he played in that Lake Tahoe golf tournament, he would see me, say hello, and then kind of say, you've gotten enough. And that's what happened in Tahoe. I'm down and needing about 16 covers signed, and I'm on an outside hole along the ocean. There's no one in sight except for me, Jordan, and Spike Lee, who he's playing with. So I brought 10 grand in cash with me. I figured I'd give him that to sign 16 things. 10 grand is obviously, it's nothing to him. It's one poker chip, but it's a charity event. So I figured it was the gesture that would hopefully help me take 10 grand, sign 16 things, take you about a minute worth of your time. You could personalize them, do whatever you want. I was, pitching him and telling him, and from me, well, I'll go to that in a second. He took the 10,000 out of my hand, put his arm around me. He said, "I appreciate it, but you've got enough." So he's known me for so long that he thinks I have enough. When I worked out on Wall Street, I had one of the greatest bosses who would teach us how to overcome objections. So I can always talk. I can always kind of work my way into trying to get what I need done. So when he said, "You've got enough," I kind of looked at him. I looked at Spike Lee. I was like, you had 3 rings. Why'd you need 4? Didn't you have enough?
Oh, that's great.
And he looks at me. He's like, he starts to smile. I was like, "You didn't need 5 rings, did you? Didn't you have enough?" And he starts laughing. Spike Lee starts laughing. I hit him with another one. I was like, "You got $100 million in the bank. Did you really need 200 million? Didn't you have enough?" And he stops and looks at me. I was like, "You understand me, Mike?" I was like, "Personalize them. I don't want to sell these. I need them from my collection." Mm-hmm. And now Spike Lee is just rolling on the floor. He's like, "I know you got a great collection, but you've got enough." He just reiterated it one more time. He's like, "But I'll take this money and it'll go to good use." So I snatched it back out of his hand, and it's like, "No, you won't. 10 grand's a lot of money to me." So I took my money back, and we parted ways. And that's like the last time I really had a nice little talk with him. I've seen him since in Tahoe, and kind of hid and stuck my hand out in between other people, and I've gotten a few done over the years, but I'm still about 16 behind on him, which I probably won't ever get done.
Wow. Scott, that is an amazing story. Just the fact that Spike Lee is enjoying it as a bystander. It's so funny. We talked about this on a previous podcast. We're like, if Michael Jordan announced right now, and he said, "Hey guys, this is my last signing ever. I'm going to sign 1,000 things and I'm done. It's for charity." We were just like, what could he charge? And we were like, I think he could charge like 20 grand without blinking, and it'd probably be sold out in minutes. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I would say, well, 1,000 pieces would take him maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So I would hope that he would do like 10,000 pieces, something that would
Sure.
take him a day,
Okay.
probably charge 10 grand.
Yeah.
There's going to be really, really serious collectors like me that need 16 things. I doubt I would pay 160 grand. I would, maybe I'd pay like 2 or 3 grand each personally,
Okay.
if I could do that. But
Mm.
for me to take, let's say hypothetically, 160,000, that's 4 years of college for my daughter, or it's 3 cars. I mean, three $50,000 cars, but what else in life? If I had 100 million in the bank, I wouldn't blink. I'd do it in a heartbeat. But
Sure.
how many serious collectors, that aren't, millionaires or multimillionaires? How many people can really afford that? One person to kick over 10 or 20 grand for, one jersey, maybe they'd do it. It's kind of like all these ticket prices where the little guy like me and you get priced out of tickets these days. It's all corporate money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing a lot of corporate people would be in on that stuff. Mom and pop who are struggling to pay bills, I don't think they'd be able to afford something like that. But you wonder, he's already a billionaire, so I don't even think he cares about making $1 million in one day. He makes that an interest without even ever raise his fingers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
He
true.
doesn't need it.
Yeah. He doesn't.
Yeah, no, I wish.
Yeah. That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that one. I think I'll
Yeah,
be
of
thinking
course.
about that one for a while. I definitely will. Um, what are some celebrities or athletes that stick out in your mind as just have always been nice and cordial and easy to approach? And then if you care to share, is there any that on the other spectrum that are just crotchety, just very difficult to deal with? I'm just curious on both spectrums if you want to share.
um, it's it's a huge spectrum. Like,
Mm,
I'm trying to think of like guys I've even just thrown in my car, like giving them rides, like a PK Subban, who's not an easy autograph, but a guy that came through town once, explained a little bit about my collection, and he gave me his cell phone number. He's like, if you're ever up in Montreal, give me a call. Like, he was just so cool, signed my stuff. And then a couple of years later, he's playing in Nashville, comes in and remembers me, signs a couple more things. And I was like, you know what? I'm here. You're the only guy I'm here for. If you need a ride, let me know. He's like, I do need a ride. He's like, I got to go to New York. Lindsey Vonn, it was his girlfriend and fiance at the time. He's like, let's go. And so we went shopping for a little while, took him out, and he went to a Red Bull event where Lindsey Vonn was. And I had all this shit in the back of my car. And he's like, don't go anywhere, like kind of jokingly. But, within 10 minutes, he comes back out, and he must have told the story of how he knows me and who was driving him to Lindsay. And Lindsay, was just so taken back how nice of a gesture it was for me. She sent him back out to go get me. He said to go park the car and come inside. She wanted me to have some fun with the two of them. So you always have guys like that. I've taken Adrian Peterson out looking for chewing tobacco. Like, the guy's just, for a big star, he's always been super, super nice. Um, there's probably 50 or 60 more super humble, super nice guys. I could, house calls all over the country of retired people that'll just invite you in for dinner. They're so nice. Um, Other end, guys that have always been kind of nasty, or the Bo Jacksons, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, and guys that are just, nowadays, like a guy like Bryce Harper. I remember he's such a miserable, miserable SOB. I remember one night, I was at the Phillies Hotel in New York after a game around midnight, and you guys know who Pat Neshek is?
mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, he was on the Phillies. He's a collector himself, a big time collector, mostly cards.
Oh, okay.
He's got probably millions of dollars worth of cards, graded, ungraded. He's the type of guy that if you send him some autographed cards, he's an autograph collector himself. As a kid, and still potentially he might go, during the off season, he might go up to his home in Minnesota and go to a hockey hotel and go wait outside and collect autographs on his cards. He's just a really good dude. And I'd gotten to know his college roommate really, really well. His college roommate is my buddy Paul. They went to Butler together. Paul's been a collector for years, and through him, I met Pat. So Pat and I would stay in touch a little bit over the years. And a couple of years ago, there's a Phillies Sports Illustrated cover with Ray Amolto, Aaron Nola, Reese Hopkins, and Bryce on the cover. I had the three of the others signed. I didn't have Bryce. So it's midnight one night. I'm at the Phillies Hotel in New York. The first guy off the bus is Pat Neshek. And he comes right over to me. We're hanging out in the lobby. There's no one in the lobby at midnight. He's like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you need the new cover signed. So Neshek knows what I'm there for. He knows I'm a collector, and he knows we need Harper. So the two of us are standing there. Bryce Harper comes off the bus, walks near us. So it's me and Neshek. I'm standing next to him. I'm like, Bryce, you got a second? And he just yells no as loud as you can, where it sounded like an echo in the Grand Canyon. It was just such an obnoxious piece of garbage no. And Neshek just laughed. He's like, that's Bryce. Like, he knows he's a bit of a four-letter word. I don't want to curse on this thing, but he's just such a miserable SOB. It's guys like that just got to pay. I don't have the time to waste by spending 2 hours driving back and forth to New York, $50 in gas and tolls and food, and I'd rather just pay.
Yeah.
Now I'm at the point where I can just cough up the money, and I've got, 20,000 extra autographs. I'll just peddle the stuff and take that money and buy one Bryce Harper,
Yeah. So did you finish that cover then? Did you get it yet?
Yeah. He's an exclusive with Fanatics, and my Fanatics rep, said $200, I'll get it done for you, and it's done.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you don't have to get screamed at.
That's a lot of things. Correct. It's just zero stress, and it's very carefree that way. So I'll let them make more money. It's definitely worth more than my time. That's
crazy. I imagine there are ups and downs like that. It's wild to hear some of these stories about the the hospitable guys, and then the not so hospitable ones. I can only imagine. So yeah, it's baseball guys are very tough. They make too much money and they think everything's for sale.
Ah, interesting.
Okay. Baseball's the hardest, huh?
Baseball's pretty tough. They're a lot of prima donnas. When you're making $2 to $40 million a year, you kind of think that you're better than everybody. And a lot of guys are good. Don't get me wrong. A lot of guys are good about it, and they appreciate it, and they're kind of humble. But most of the big stars are very, very tough. So it's pretty difficult getting these guys.
Scott, speaking of difficult, I don't know if this is not an athlete, but have you got Taylor Swift? She's a big get right now. Did you get Taylor Swift by any chance?
No. I've never chased after her either. Thank God. I will never need her. She'll never be on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. With Travis Kelce,
could be with Jason Kelce now. You never know.
Yeah, that would really, really suck. It would really suck.
You could do it, Scott. I'm confident in you.
Yes, yeah, I am too.
They put Beyonce on a cover as a swimsuit cover. They put Megan Thee Stallion on a cover, and I've gotten them both. When Beyonce wasn't as big as she is today, she came out with a movie a while back called Cadillac, and they did like a press conference kind of media thing over at Macy's in Herald Square in New York City, and 1,000 people outside waiting online, and I kind of just worked my way into the paparazzi and television camera crew people line, and as soon as they got done shooting photographs, I just popped out. She really had nothing to say because there were cameras rolling, and she signed for me, and I went on my way, and pissed a couple security guys off, but
Yeah.
I really don't care. So yeah, I got my one thing done and I left. And Megan Thee Stallion hosted Saturday Night Live here in the city, and every Tuesday night before Saturday Night Live, they always have this one dinner at this one restaurant. So I went down there, put a couple hours in. And for someone who I thought would have like big, rapper type security, she was alone with a couple of off-duty cops, and she was cooler than all hell. She was so sweet, and
that's
I
great.
really thought I'd have a problem with her. And a big problem right now is going to be like The Rock. I need Dwayne Johnson and Kim Kardashian, like two mega stars. And The Rock was just in town last night doing Jimmy Fallon, and this one girl collector that I know has an amazing photo with him. I don't know how she found him or where she found him, but she found him, and she's got an amazing photo. So one day I'll be in the right spot at the right time, and hopefully I'll get him too.
You'll pull it off, I'm sure.
I hope so.
So Scott, we have one final question, but before we do that, I have something kind of fun.
Right.
You've kind of sparked something here. So I have a friend who's got he's got the top 75 NBA rookie cards autographed, just about. He needs MJ, and he needs one other player who is like next to impossible. Kawhi Leonard. I know he's been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. What would it take to get his autograph? Is that even possible?
It's crazy. I thought you were going to say Maravich or John Stockton, but Kawhi,
a living player that's playing right now.
Yeah, Kawhi and the Clippers were in New York City last week for 4 days, and all 4 days he signed.
Oh,
it's the first I've ever heard of him signing. Although one day last year I heard he signed a little bit, but I saw one kid in New York get one of his cards signed in like a baby blue deco, and it was the letter K. That's it. It was such garbage. It was disgusting. So I went in. He's on 3 SIs that I need signed. I put in time. It was actually the night I met Megan Fox, and I got her kind of quickly and easily, and then hustled over to the Clippers hotel. Within 5 minutes, Kawhi came out. And earlier in the day, he said to my friend, he's like, I'll get you on the way back. And true to his word, he did sign on the way back.
Okay.
I got there after that. So when he came out to dinner with his mom, I said, you said you'd sign on the way back. He's like, I already did. So he did not sign for me. I was the only one asking. I waited about an hour and a half. He came back and he ignored me on the way in.
Wow.
Well, so I think there is hope that as these guys get older, wiser, and towards the end of their career, I think there may be some hope that they break down and eventually do it.
All right. Well, after we get off the pod, I might connect with you, and we'll see what we can come up with for this challenge to get a card signed by him.
I can't do it for you. I can't do it. I need my SIs done.
Yeah, right. There are priorities. I understand.
Yeah, that's my priority.
Yeah.
I totally understand. Excellent. So Scott, one final question for you. We ask every guest this question. It's going to be interesting for you because you've met so many sports figures and celebrities over, this period of time. But, if you could sit down and get a coffee for like an hour or two with any sports figure or celebrity, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
It would be out of greediness for me needing their autographs. It would be either Tiger or Jordan, or LeBron. Those are the 3 big ones I need. Because if I had an hour with someone and would have the time to talk for that long and explain to them, I'd almost wear them out with why I need their autograph on the rest of their covers. So if I had the ability to explain to them, I got a little bit of a shot with LeBron coming up, only because their head coach Darvin Ham is like an old friend of mine. So I may try and hit him up for a little bit of help. But I think I can talk pretty good. So it's a matter of if they don't care about the money or the selling aspect of it, and to let them know that they can personalize every one of them that I put in front of them for my personal collection. And those would probably be the three guys I'd want to sit down with.
I like it.
That's probably the answer.
Yeah. So it's almost like having a coffee with a purpose. You want to sit down and
for the most part.
Done. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Scott,
Great.
if I can sneak one last question in, I've been thinking about this since you first started talking.
Okay.
Has Sports Illustrated reached out to you? Have they done an article on Scott Smith?
Not on me. Ideally, I'd love them to do something on the history of my collection.
Yes.
There's just such turnover there, and even the ownership group has changed hands 3 times, but I don't think they care about the history of the magazine. It's just a job to most of these people. But I've been in the magazine 3 times. Once like a letter to the editor, where it wasn't really a letter that I wrote, but more so they contacted me. They sent a photographer over. It was like a letter to help me obtain Ronald Reagan's autograph, which I got on my own anyway. But I helped them twice more. Once with the 50th anniversary issue, they put like a half a page about me and my collection in there. They put me in their covers book. It's a big coffee table book. There's a whole page on me and my collection in that one. And then the SI Jinx is an old tale. Like if you get on the cover of Sports Illustrated, something goes wrong. So back in I don't remember the date, but there were people there that knew me, and they knew that I have a Rolodex. I had been doing all my research for 30 years at the time, let's just say. So I had all the contact information, names, addresses, phone numbers for all of their cover subjects. The fencer, the old baseball, basketball, football players, everyone from the 50s and 60s. I had done research as to where they are in the country and in the world. And I had their contact information from keeping like a Rolodex. So they wanted to do stories on the SI Jinx. I wouldn't hand over my Rolodex and all my contact information. So they hired me for a day and gave me $2,000 to make phone calls to all of these people and ask if there was ever anything that went wrong after they appeared on the cover. And I came up with about 7 or 8 really good stories. And that whole process is inside the SI Jinx issue. It's like a black cat on the cover, but there's a mention of me in that one also.
Ooh.
Yeah, it should be a life goal to get on the cover, I think. Hopefully not with the Jinx though. I mean, but I can imagine you being on the cover and you signing that Sports Illustrated cover would be like, you're good.
That'd be pretty cool.
You're good. You're set. You're set. They've got to make that happen.
As soon as the cover comes out, I break my right hand and I can't sign.
Oh my goodness.
I'll find a way.
Scott, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you. If people want to follow you or reach out to you, what's the best way to find you? I know I personally love kind of watching your stories, but how can they find you? How can they follow you?
They can find my Instagram page. I do a little one post a day. I try and keep up with 1 post a day. Just type in Scott Smith SI King and you can find me, or email is probably the easiest way to get hold of me. I have a website, sikingcollection.com, but email address is sikingcollection@aol.com. I'm all over Facebook and all the autograph groups, so it's not hard to find me if they really wanted to.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I'll continue to follow you, and this is great. Thanks again, Scott.